Dan Olds here, 2025 Winter Classic Invitational Student Cluster Competition. We're doing another team interview. This time we're touching base with the Roadrunner team from University of New Mexico, who's having a pretty good competition so far. And we're going to go through that. First of all, how y'all doing?
Doing good.
Good,
Yeah? Good? Good?
good.
Good? Teamwork's going well. And as we kind of talked about in the pre-call, um, you guys talk a lot. You're staying on top of the team communication. That's great. Except right now when none of you are talking. So other than that, you're communicating, but not with me. And Xavier, you look like you're mad. Is everything okay?
I'm just really tired right now. Don't
Okay.
worry about it.
I'm sorry. I won't mess with you. Well, I might because I'm a little tired myself. But um, anyway, let's go through your history in 2025. You've done pretty good. Um, you haven't heard of a lot of these scores, but let's bring it in. First of all, you won Limpack. You got 100 on that. That was good. It was close. It was within fractions of a point, but 100 points is better than 99.72 points, which is what the second place team came in with. You also did well on HPCG. You were fifth, but that was kind of top loaded as well. You got another 91 points out of that. You came out of that first module in second place. Pretty good. Happy, riding high. Um, you did a good job on the crash course. You had close to the maximum score in terms of questions answered correctly, but you're a little slow. Some teams sort of gamed it and did it in really fast times, but the time factor wasn't that big. You still pulled in um, a score of number five overall on that. So good. That's fine. Came out of it after that, number three. Now, um, no, wait a minute. You guys came out of that. You were third in the final exam in that exam ranking, came out of it number two still. You held on to second place, although some teams kind of edged up closer on you. Oak Ridge, you did okay. How was that challenge? How hard was that?
It was pretty hard,
Yeah.
pretty
Is it
difficult.
your first time working with Quantum?
I know it's my first time. I know it's a lot of our first time. Um,
Any of you guys ever done much in the way of Quantum before? No? It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, in fact.
I think Xavier might have done it.
Did you
I
do
don't
some
know if it was
Quantum,
him
Xavier?
last year, but
Um, no, I've never done anything with quantum computing before.
Mm. Well, it's never been done in any student cluster competition.
Hmm.
It's first for that. So, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's just not an awful lot of access out there, and there's not a lot of quantum 101 out there that really dives in. So this is kind of cool. And then also you ran on essentially the same system as Frontier, which is pretty cool too. So you guys got through that. That was good. Um, some teams didn't. You ended up um, ranked fifth on the Oak Ridge thing, but you still held on to number two, which is really pretty cool and surprising. I mean, but it's the way this thing works that you don't have to win every challenge to keep your rank high. You have to be consistent. and you did. So looking good there. And tell me what you guys thought of the AWS challenge with Wharf. How'd you guys approach that?
Well, so with the AWS challenge, it was actually nice because, it shows you step by step how to build the cluster, the instances to use. Um,
Hmm.
I just felt like it was unnecessary to have to rebuild the cluster. I
Yeah.
understand why they had us do it, but at the same time,
Why do you think they had you do it?
well, I mean, like from my standpoint too, I work in a data center and anything could happen in a data center. A flood could happen,
Yeah.
a fire, you never know, right? And you need a way to recover all of that data that you have lost.
Yep.
So, I mean, pretty sure that's why they had us do it.
No.
Mm,
but but you're right. It's good skills to have. It's something that's important. The real reason is that those particular workspaces they had you in that are sort of dedicated, those have a 72 hour time limit on them.
mm.
And so it's, you know, do it once for 72 hours or do it twice. And do it twice. I mean, what? Gonna let up on you? No, no, we're gonna use the whole time. Um, and possibly, potentially in coming years, because this seemed to work pretty well with AWS, there it might be two sprints like that, but maybe with a different data set or something along those lines. So but that was the real reason why. It's just something built into that particular mechanism. Now, so to me, the real challenge of the AWS thing was to not make Wharf run or optimize Wharf so much, but to find the right instances.
That's definitely what it seemed like.
Mhm.
We were kind of more stuck on how to how to optimize it where you couldn't really optimize it that much. Like you said, you had to use the right instance.
Yeah, yeah. And some teams just spent most of the time really trying to optimize it. Um, and then other teams went, way off into the hinterlands, trying to get it to run on ARM, trying to get it run on, they have some did Graviton, uh, some tried AMD stuff and Intel and everything else, every combination they could come up with. But is that what you ended up doing was mainly looking at the instances?
I know that we tried a couple of instances. We definitely probably should have tried more, but no, we tried just figuring out how to optimize
Mm.
work, basically.
And and there was some optimization available there too. Um, One of the teams, which I thought was pretty smart, thought outside the box a little bit, and
Mhm.
they made sure that the environment was completely up to date, like updating Linux to the latest version helped them,
Mhm.
gave them some more speed on it. Um, they didn't find I think that team ended up using the instance that was recommended, and other teams went into some other ones. Do you remember what did you ever? Well, let me ask you this: did you ever think about profiling it, or do you know what that is? Okay, it's an HPC. Well, it's a software thing, but there are free profilers out there that will watch your code as it executes and tell you what it's doing. Like, for instance, let's say a code that doesn't scale very well, it can only use so many cores, for instance. It might show you that throughout its run, it never used more than 48 cores or 24, pick some number, right? Um, and then in this case, that would tell you that you should look for that you're leaving cores on the table. So let's find an instance that has fewer cores and faster cores. Or you might find that it's memory bound, that it's just filling up memory and that's the bottleneck. So then you go out and find more core instances with more memory, stuff like that.
I see.
And they're very, very useful, those tools, and can save an awful lot of trial and error. So
It's really good
something
to
to
see.
think about.
Yeah.
Something to
For
think about.
example, in like simple profiling in HPC be like HTOP or is there something else?
There's a bunch of them. Well, yeah, that's one of them. I think one of the other ones is profs. Um, the ARM guys make one that's a paid app, but they can do amazing things in the right hands, and they're not all that hard to figure out either. But that's definitely one of the first things to do when you're trying to performance optimize. Um, and maybe I should include that. Maybe make the teams next year do a profile report or something like that. I don't know. Let me run something by you on that HPC crash course. I've had some teams recommend that be the very first challenge in the competition. So it'd be like right before LinPack and HPCG. What do you think?
I think that's a really good idea. Just because it actually gives a lot more of a better introduction to, open ACC and MPI and, which one to use for what. So, because I mean, I also ran into that little bit of an issue whenever I was working with HPL and
Yeah.
HPG. So, yeah, definitely the HPC crash course. If that was first, I think that'd be really helpful. I don't know
Okay.
if anyone else agrees.
Yeah. What do you got? What the rest do you think? Does it make
I
sense?
also agree with that.
Yeah.
And especially if they do have access to some of the
Yes.
examples shown in the crash course, I would imagine it would basically essentially a good reference point when they actually get to HPCG and
Yeah.
LIMPAC
Yeah.
optimization.
Yeah. I think so too. And what what will be available is being able to be on that system that that you're using this week. That's the one that they were using in the crash course. So students will be able to follow along and do the examples, which I think would be
Yeah,
helpful.
that would be very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't get it done quickly enough. It's a fair amount of paperwork and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But but yeah, I appreciate that feedback. That's a good thing. So you're coming down to the end of this thing, and you are still in third place and not very far in third. I mean, like 48 points behind Santa Cruz, who's number two. So you got a shot. There's still 200 points out there with the PSC and the interview coming up. So keep pushing. And I guess to sort of close things out, if you just go around and just, you know, what are your impressions of this? Was there anything in particular you learned or anything like that? And
I
don't
mean,
all rush in at once. And Xavier, you I'm not going to give you a pass on this, but you don't have to say a lot because you are tired. But let's start out with you.
But so yeah, I think the AWS challenge is where I've learned the most because
Mm,
It's been a while since I've used cloud computing resources,
hmm
and it's changed quite a bit, especially for um, what is it, for creating HPC computing resources. So that
hmm
was pretty interesting. I do like reusing YAML files as infrastructure as code instead of something like Terraform. I just found
Okay.
that to be
Makes
like
sense.
um, a lot more simple and easy to work with.
And that was one of the big things he wanted to teach too, with that is the whole infrastructure is code. So you picked up on that. Good. Very good. Who's up next?
I can talk about my experience.
Sure.
To build on top of Xavier's, it was my first time having to work with cloud computing, and it was a very interesting experience. Working in AWS. Um, and on top of that, I also found working with the Oak Ridge materials to be very interesting
Mm,
as well, since it's
hmm
also my first time working with quantum computing and those materials. Because in the wild, you don't really have a lot of opportunities to work on materials like those. Um, a general sentiment that I have about the overall
hmm
competition
Yeah.
is that I wish I had more time to work on each of the modules because they're also interesting, and it feels like I wish I just more than 1 week to work on and
Yeah.
explore each of the um,
To get the most out of
modules.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that Oak Ridge module in particular should have been 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
and the thing is, I could have done it, but I didn't know. Um,
Mm.
it's something we should have discussed beforehand. It was kind of it wasn't a last minute thing on their part, but it's not like they planned that for 6 months or even, 3 months. They just said, hey, why don't we try this? And then they made it happen. Um,
I see.
and you got a problem with making this thing too long if we went 2 weeks, but I do think it's important to give you that week off in between. It's tough. It's a tightrope. It is what it is. Seems to
Yeah.
work. Who's next?
I was just going to say, I mean, I don't have any specific competition that caught my eye, but more overall, I feel like with every single competition, there's always something new to it. It's not repetitive.
Yeah,
You're constantly just learning something new. So, as an example,
yeah.
like Xavier and Leo said, I've never worked with cloud computing as well. So it was my first time getting hands-on with that. And then especially with HPL and HPCG, I've actually never worked with HPL or HPCG, so learning how to optimize them and learning how to set them up as well was really cool.
They're, you know, kind of the easy, easy-ish first
Mhm.
step into HPC. And every cluster competition starts with them traditionally.
Right.
So, and both written by the same guy, by the way, Jack Dongara. Yeah, he's given a lot. A Turing Award winner and a really nice guy too. So yeah. So we come down to the last two. Who's going to go first? Go ahead.
So, okay, also for me, like everything, every competition is new for me, like the supercomputing, HPC, AWS, ORNL, and I learn a lot of things as I'm new to this. I always kind of feel lost and like there's a lot of thing, and we have to go through all those steps and also in small time frame. I kind of feel lost, but also like I am learning. I I don't think I contributed a lot, but I am learning a lot.
That's the point. That's the point. Is it interesting to you as something you might want to do as a career?
Yeah, um, yeah. The cloud computing one is kind of interesting one. I found
Mm-hmm.
AWS competition is interesting one, and also the Orgris one, we have to go through the ORNL computing system, doing SSS, and
Well, that's the thing. And what year are you?
I'm freshman.
Oh, you've got lots of time. You got lots of time. Come back, do this again next year. Yeah, it will make it more and more sense to you as you do it.
Okay.
It's but you're new to it, and everything this complex is going to be scary and new, but everybody goes through
Yeah.
it. So yeah. And last but not least,
Yes. So my personal experience was, so I was just, all the projects were interesting to